Good afternoon. This is overwhelming. I apologize for not having enough seats. And I also forgot to turn the coffee on, so. Okay, I'm going to let Liana lead us in a toast.
If everybody could please raise their glasses. Today we lift our glasses in honor of someone who gave so much to our community, our dear friend Bob. During this time on the board of directors, Bob led with integrity, compassion, and a deep commitment to the well-being of this community. Some may not know, but he assisted with the second revision of the CC&Rs, and he worked with Eileen Callaghy on the color changes when the home's original colors were discontinued. He was the kind of person whose presence made things better, whose thoughtful insight and genuine kindness left a lasting impression on all of us. More than a board member, Bob was a friend to so many in this room. And that friendship and those memories and the good that he did continue to live on in each of us. To Bob, with gratitude, respect, and love, may we never forget the difference he made and the man he was. Cheers.
Okay, I've prepared a little biography. Bob was born in Canton, Indiana. Whoa, I already screwed up. Bob was born in Clinton, Indiana on August 30th, 1950. Clinton was a little town with a population of 5,000 people located about 95 miles west of Indianapolis. At that time, it was a prosperous town with many small businesses serving the community. Bob's mother stayed at home and his father was a typesetter for a local newspaper. Bob had a brother, Marion, who was 10 years older. Kindergarten in Clinton was optional. When Bob was kindergarten age, his mother asked him if he would like to attend. He opted to stay home and didn't start school until first grade. For heaven's sakes, what mother doesn't send their kid to kindergarten? Despite what you may think of Bob today, he was not a quiet child. In one of his elementary classes, he used to scream at the top of his lungs when the teacher left the classroom. Bob's neighbor frequently reminded Bob what a nice boy his brother Marion was. The troublemaking continued. Someone in his community was building a house and temporarily living in the basement. Bob and his buddies put concrete blocks in front of the guy's door so he couldn't get out. And if I heard the story once, I heard it a million times. In high school, Bob and his friend got so drunk that one of them rear-ended the other in their parents' cars. When questioned the next day, neither one of them had any recollection of what happened. The story was told with so much laughter, to this day I don't know who ran into whom. Bob's more productive years in high school were spent working on his 57 Chevy and participating in car races. Bob finally relinquished his trophies when we moved to California. Bob attended Purdue University majoring in mechanical engineering. He was part of their 5-year rotational program, which consisted of alternating between a semester of classes, then working a practicum with a company the subsequent semester. Bob worked for General Motors, where he made good money and was able to buy a new car while he was in college. Although Bob had always imagined working in the automotive industry, his sense of adventure got the best of him, and he took a job with AC Sparkplug in New Jersey after graduating. He, along with his fellow newbies, had more fun partying than working. From there, he took a job with Ford Motors in the Philadelphia suburbs. His job was designing keys for car radios. A key was a mechanical device behind the plastic button on a push-button radio. Remember those? What a cake job. I guess that's when the automobile industry was flush with money. About this time, I came into the picture. We met through a dating service. We were trendsetters. I figured the likelihood of finding a nice guy through a dating service was better than trying to pick up one in a bar. Our first date was around Valentine's Day in 1977, and we were married in May of 1978. In fact, it was Memorial Day weekend. We didn't quite make it to 47 years. On our first date, Bob showed up in a brown polyester shirt with big white flowers on it. We had king crab at the Rusty Scupper. Not only did I eat my crab, I finished off Bob's as well. By the end of the evening, I realized this guy had potential, but his wardrobe had to go. During our courtship, we went camping with some friends on the Shenandoah River. Someone had the bright idea to go canoeing. We loaded up the canoe with personal items and plenty of beer, expecting a leisurely ride down the river. Unfortunately, the river was swollen with excessive amounts of water from the spring rains. We capsized twice, and both times we were rescued by the Boy Scouts. We lost everything. Whitewater canoeing was not our bag. Another funny event during our courtship was the time we got a little frisky at the drive-in. We tore the front seat out of the floorboards of my rusted-out Ford Torino. Luckily, Bob, being mechanically inclined, managed to bolt the seats back into the floor. Shortly after we were married, we bought an older home, which kept us busy with repairs and remodeling. In the meantime, Ford decided to move its support staff to Dearborn, Michigan. Not wanting to leave Philly, Bob took a job with Proctor Silex in their toaster oven division. After seeing the dismal conditions of the manufacturing plant in North Carolina, Bob determined there was no future with this company, and he moved on to a company which produced gas springs for automobiles and office furniture. 4.5 years into our marriage, we had our first child, Margaret, named after Bob's mother. I continued to work after Meg was born. After a year, we decided I would stay home with the baby, and at this time, Bob was interested in getting into management. So we had that opportunity working for Jeannie, who made garage door openers, which meant a move to Canton, Ohio. Coincidentally, I was born in Canton and gave birth to our second child, Augustine, in the same hospital I was born in 35 years earlier. While living in Ohio, Bob enrolled in an MBA program and majored in marketing and finance. After 4 years in Ohio, his former employer, Gas Spring, offered him a management position, so it was back to the Philadelphia suburbs. After 10 years, Stabilis, formerly Gas Spring, decided to consolidate and move to North Carolina, where their manufacturing took place. Bob, tired of the company and unable to find a suitable position in Philadelphia, took a job with RockShox in San Jose in 1998. They made suspension systems for high-end dirt bikes. We figured if we had to move, we may as well make it an adventure. About 1.5 years after we had settled in, RockShox's new president decided to move the company to Colorado. Not wanting to uproot the family again, Bob took a job with a company that made parts for the machines that made microchips. The company was eventually bought out by the Japanese. Bob's position wasn't certain, so he found his final job with a company that made valves for high-purity gases that went into the production of microchips. After 8 years, Bob was fed up with the president of the company, and Bob retired at age 60. In the meantime, he got a certificate in strategic pricing and started his own consulting business and even published a book. So please take one of those books so I don't have to get rid of them. We intended to move into a 55-plus community, but after the 2008 debacle, our home in a newer neighborhood lost its value, and we had to wait until we recouped some of our losses. We accidentally found Four Seasons on our way back from vacationing in southern Utah. We spent the night in Bakersfield before heading back to the Bay Area. We were watching the news the next morning, and they advertised this community on TV. I suggested we check it out. Bob fell in love with the place, and the rest was history. We've lived here for almost 12 years. Bob was not all work and no play. He enjoyed motorcycling in his younger days. He also enjoyed golf, sports, especially the Philadelphia Eagles, sci-fi and action movies on the big screen. He also enjoyed playing video games with our son Gus, especially racing games. He was a gym rat for 20 years. We spent most of our vacation at amusement parks with the kids. Once we officially retired, we enjoyed a few Viking cruises and trips around the U.S. Four Seasons introduced Bob to pool, which he grew to love. We bought a Mustang convertible when we moved to Bakersfield. Even though Bob had two other sports cars while we were married, he especially loved the Mustang and entered it into car shows until COVID. Bob never had time to become complacent. He was smart as a whip, a quick study, and he was guarded enough to be congenial, unlike his spouse. He was too busy for a midlife crisis, but not too busy to be a great father to his children and a good husband to me. Now you will hear from our daughter, Meg.
Oh man, since my mom didn't send out personal invites, I was worried that nobody was going to be here, but that's definitely not the issue. All right, well, I wanted to start by thanking everybody for coming here today. My dad loved this community so much, and I know that you all have been so tremendously helpful these past few years while his health declined. I hated living so far away and always wanted my parents to come live in Austin where my husband and I live, but they just loved it so much. So again, I'm so grateful that he and my mom and my brother have had such a wonderful support system here. So thank you. I tend to think celebrations of life are kind of like social media, the sugar-coated version of people's lives. But fortunately, my dad was a wonderful man and father, and so it really was not difficult for me at all to come up with some really nice things to say about him. All right, despite being a wild child in his younger days, having kids made my dad a little more serious and slightly more practical. He traded his beloved motorcycle for a sports car and a station wagon without too much of a fight. He did manage to flip that station wagon with my infant brother Gus inside, but that's a story for after the service. Don't worry, nobody was hurt. He did know how to properly install a car seat. He was also very handy around the house and the yard. We always had a really nice swing set. He helped build a fabulous community playground in Pennsylvania when we lived there. And Dad made us a really neat 2-story fort for our backyard. It had a sandbox on the bottom and a deck on the top, and nobody else in the neighborhood had anything like it. When I was just 3 years old, my parents taught me how to ride a bike without training wheels, which people seemed to be pretty impressed by. Dad coached my Little League softball team, which was short-lived, but that was my doing. Once I got hit in the face with the ball, trying to catch one, I was over it and moved on to more girly activities like dance and gymnastics, which weren't exactly in his wheelhouse. But later, teaching me to drive definitely was. And we practiced in his manual sports car. Thanks to him, I was the only girl I knew who knew how to drive stick shift. The boys loved it. Unfortunately, I ended up totaling that car, but he wasn't as mad as I thought he would be, probably because it's something he had done a couple times himself. Growing up, I loved school and thrived on getting good grades, which I also think I inherited from my dad. Being studious himself, he was always willing to lend a hand with homework and studying, college applications, all that kind of thing. I will say I did get a C in my woodworking class, so I guess he didn't pass down those genes, but maybe I was just too busy goofing off like he did when he was a kid. We vacationed a lot throughout my childhood. Sometimes we would fly, other times we would road trip. And I do remember one particular instance where my dad let his mischievous side come out. My mom, as you know, is an avid coffee drinker, and we had to make a lot of pit stops. So we tired of it, my brother, my dad, and I. And one time, Gus and I convinced my dad to move the car while she was in the bathroom. And this was before cell phones. And we watched and laughed while my mom came out totally confused. And we did make her sweat it out a little bit before we finally drove over and got her. At home, my friend, this is weird, but I don't know why we did it, but my friends and I would always rummage through my dad's things, and he never seemed to mind. We borrowed his T-shirts, borrowed from his amazing CD collection, and then forgot to return them. We'd tear apart the garage using his tools and wood scraps to make skateboards. He did have a breaking point, though. One time, my friends and I were sleeping in that double-decker fort that I mentioned earlier. And we did that so we could sneak boys over. So I can't repeat what he yelled because it involved the F word. But my friends, we were all so stunned because it was so out of character for him. To this day, those friends and I still talk about it, but now we laugh, especially because we can empathize. And my dad and I did talk about it later, and we laughed a lot about it too. Early on, our household was very traditional. My dad worked, my mom stayed home with us, as she mentioned, and you all know that my mother did not get more serious after having children. There were so many days I could not wait for my dad to get home from work so I could tattle on her. I'd be like, "Dad, you will not believe what Mom said to the lady at the grocery store." I would proceed to tell the story, and he would bellow, "Linda." And so they definitely balanced each other out. And I'm actually a little bit nervous to see how misbehaved my mom becomes in this next chapter of her life without any adult supervision. Speaking of adulthood, I never outgrew my dad. I needed him just as much in my 20s and 30s as I navigated my career and attempted independence. He was my mentor, my financial advisor, my role model. He was so smart, incredibly funny, and a total class act. When I'm in a difficult situation, I always ask myself, what would Dad do? And I'll probably continue to do that for the rest of my life. Even though I think we lost him much too soon, the positive impact he's had on my life will stay with me always. Thanks so much. Oh, and here's my brother, Gus.
All right, well, thank you everyone for coming. My name's Gus, I'm Bob's son, and from as early as I can remember, we always had a computer in the house, something that wasn't very common back then. It might seem small now, but that early exposure shaped so much of who I became. My dad taught me how to use the computer, and looking back, I realized that was the beginning of a lifelong journey in technology and creativity. In the early 90s, he bought us a Nintendo, and I was instantly hooked. That moment sparked my love for video games, a passion that stayed with me ever since. When I was a kid, I dreamed of becoming a video game developer, and my dad didn't just encourage that dream, he shared it with me. We'd play racing games together, both at home and at the arcade. Those moments were more than just games, they were memories, connections, and joy. He was a mechanical engineer, and he was incredible at building things. When we lived in Philly, he built our deck, installed the garage door, and even designed and rigged a clothesline. Watching him work sparked something in me, unlike my sister. By the time I was 13, I was using his tools so often, he had to buy me my own toolbox. One of the tools he gave me was a multi-bit screwdriver. It's the one I still cherish the most. Every time I use it, I think of him. It's not just a tool, it's a reminder of how he built not just things, but who I am. Another favorite memory I had with my dad is going to the movies. We shared a love for sci-fi and action films. After the credits rolled, we'd head to Sparrow's for pizza and talk about what we just watched. Those days were magic, not because of the movies, but because I got to share them with my dad. My dad had a deep love for cars, and like so many things, that passion rubbed off on me too. When I was 17, I got my license, and a couple years later, he gave me a '98 Honda Civic and taught me how to drive stick, patiently, confidently, and always with a smile when I stalled the car. That car became a symbol of freedom, trust, and of the kind dad he was, supportive, generous, and proud. My dad was more than just a father. He was a mentor, a teammate, a teacher, and a friend. He shaped my passions, encouraged my dreams, and gave me the tools, literally and figuratively, to build a life I'm proud of. I miss him deeply, but I see him everywhere. In every screw I tighten, in every engine I admire, every film I love, every memory I can carry. Thank you, Dad, for everything.
Now we're going to hear from Neil Majonic. This is one of Bob's best friends.
It's all up here. About 50 years ago, I was living in Lansdale, Pennsylvania, and working for the electronics group of Ford Motor Company in Lansdale. And one afternoon, a fellow by the name of Howard Kell, who was a manager, brought this guy over to meet me, brand new employee in our group. And that's when I first met Bob. Little glasses, kind of. And we went to lunch together at Ford, and we just hit it off. It was one of those things where, he loved, where he was living, and he was single at the time, So we just hit it off, and we both loved a lot of the same music. So he'd come to my house, and I would go to his apartment. I think he was living in North Wales at that time, is that right? And then the lava lamp went on, and he pulled out a little pipe, and we started smoking. And we just became the best of friends. And that's just the way it worked. Bob, my people call Bob, or have a name for a guy like Bob. It's called a mensch. Has anybody heard that? Okay. So a mensch is a guy who almost never says anything bad about anyone. He was very special to me. Like we would go to concerts together. We went to concerts in Philadelphia. When he was out here, we went to see the Eagles together right here in Bakersfield and Fleetwood Mac. Great concerts. But we obviously got drunk a lot when he moved out to California, which is, so I knew him for a couple of years in Lansdale, and then I moved to Santa Clara, actually. And so we kind of lost a little bit of that connection. He was, like Linda explained, he was, doing job to job and going around and doing things. But I happened to be back east on a business trip. It was a Sunday, so I was at my sister's house, which was a place right outside of Philly called Warminster, Pennsylvania. And we had flip phones back then. And my phone rang, and I picked it up, and it's Bob. And he says, "We're moving to California." It was 1998, is that what it was? Something like that? 97, 98. "We're moving to California." I go, "Bob, I'm 4 miles away from you. I have to come over and talk to you about this." He didn't know. He thought I was in California. He didn't know I happened to be just a couple of miles away from where he was. So we spent the time, and I told him about, the Bay Area and all of that. And then once he moved out, we, of course, went out a lot together. And Linda and Bob and knew my first wife and my second wife and my third wife. And yeah, colorful life, you know. But anyway, we spent a lot of time together and had a lot of fun, and I'm going to miss him a lot. It's, when Linda called me and told me what happened, a really close friend of mine in Philadelphia that I talked to every day had just passed. And it was just a week later when I heard from Bob. So it's kind of a double bad February for me. But I just wanted to come up and say, you know, that he's a really great guy. And you know, a couple of people mentioned how smart he was. Well, Bob had a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, and I have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. We both have master's degrees in business administration. And, you know, when we're working together, Bob always told me I was dogging it because I hardly ever worked. I really did. I really did. I just skated by. But Bob was a really good worker, and he really knew what he was doing, and he wanted to make sure that he had all his I's dotted and T's crossed. He was just that kind of guy, much, much smarter than I am. He actually did the math in college. I had to figure out how to do the math in college. It was very difficult. Tough. Engineering's tough. Anyway, I'm going to miss him very much, and that's all I have to say.
Hi, I'm Joan. I am the sister-in-law, and I've known Bob for 40 years. But I'm going to close us out. I am the succinct one. I attempted a haiku poem. I took lots of liberties, and I'd never done this before, so this is for you, Bob. You left us too soon, best brother-in-law ever. Where's the cereal forever in my mind's eye? I've been missing you for a long, long time. Thank you for everything. I love you.